Thank you so much.
Welcome everybody to our session, and maybe we could start by introducing ourselves. Yasser, you want to introduce yourself first?
That's fine. So my name is Yasser Atef. I am a student at the American University in Cairo. I'm in my final year. Next semester is going to be my last. I'm also the MYFest and Equity and Bound Program Support Intern. I'm an accessibility and disability advocate, so everything that has to do with disability rights, accessibility, digital accessibility, or physical accessibility, uh, are my very much thing, and I would dabble into it. Um, just note that I always like to do is that I'm always grateful that I'm able to provide these kind of sessions because they come from lived experiences. I'm not a rigorous academic, or I'm not bringing the something from the literature. All of what is going to be shared today is just reflective and is all part of my identity and lived experience. Over to Mark.
Okay, great. And my name is Mark Marino, and I teach at the University of Southern California. Um, I'm also, by the way, the the provisional provost of the Under Academy College, which has a lot of MyFest vibes, but I'll talk about that some other day. And the title of our session is Battle for Alt Bots versus Brains. And what's on the screen right now has a picture, an AI generated picture of me and an actual picture of Yasser. And since we're left and right, you might be perceiving that I'm the bot and Yasser is the brains. And if that's what you think, then I think that's fine. I'm not going to correct that presumption. It is quite. I spent the whole weekend with people referring to me as deep fake, so it is possible that I am the bot part of this. I did want to start with a little exercise in the chat, because this is part of the inspiration for this session. So on the screen is a photograph, and this is a photograph. Well, I won't describe it just yet. But during the past year, as part of the Imagine book club, one of MYFest book clubs that Teresa ran, we kept a WhatsApp group going, and I would share pictures of flowers as I passed them on my morning dog walks with Ace the dog. And again, realizing that one of the people who was part of that chat was Yasser, I want to make sure I always described them or provided some alt text description. But over time, I realized that I wasn't sharing those pictures, or I was sharing them for very particular reasons, or what I was trying to share was not just something biological. Again, in this photo, if you were a botanist, you might describe it as I might butcher this name, Albizia julibrissin, aka Persian silk flower in bloom. But if you were somebody else, if you were a lover communicating their mood, a botanist describing the state of a tree, a web designer showing off their skills, a poet reflecting on the transience of life, or a politician seeking re-election, you might describe this picture very differently. So I thought it might be interesting, just in chat, for you to post your descriptions of this picture briefly. And again, by briefly, I mean just a little phrase or a little one sentence maybe. But put who you're imagining is describing this photo first. Again, like the model I've given you, botanist, and then description. So you just choose some person, some job, colon, and then write however you would describe this image. It just as a little bit of a warm-up exercise. And I will open up chat so I can see what people are writing. Okay, great. We've got a mother trying to protect her children. Oh, I see. That's very nice, because we've got the one blossom and we have the other smaller blossoms around it. Alan writes, politician, single brilliant sprayed patterns, pink flower standing strong amongst dead flowers and uninspired green leaves. I love it. Yes, the rhetoric of that. Politician, a lovely blooming purple flower demonstrating the effectiveness of my policies. Great, Jenny. Love it. Christina, exhausted person. Starting to tentatively come out of one's shell and reach out to others. I love it. Well, and actually that relates to another part of our session today, which is thinking about this activity of writing alt text, not just as some sort of burden or not just some sort of extra activity for, accommodation, but more as a opportunity to create community and extend community and to connect with others in a very real way. So again, imagining being more intentional about all this. Heather writes, poet, pink flowers dying quickly. Oh, wait, and Robin writes, hummingbird buffet. Oh, very nice. Oh, I love these. David Yates, nature lover, flower close-up, opening to light and inspection. Andrew, web designer, a person invisible behind the screen. A bit of color and contrast. Oh, very nice. Okay, so now let's go on to another experience that Yasser had with getting a description of an image and how some other issues came up. Yasser, you want to talk about this slide that has the photograph of you on it?
So yeah, I use kinds of different AI, some of which are very much designed to provide alternative text, and some of which are general AI tools like ChatGPT, where you can prompt it to provide alternative text. And I got this. I always depended on that photo, and I always saved that description. So I got a photo of me, which is I believe on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked something called Be My AI, which is a feature, a part of a larger app called Be My Eyes that provides assistance to blind and partially sighted people. And that Be My AI feature is used to provide the alternative text to people. So I used both my phone, Be My AI, and my computer's Be My AI, and both of which came up with different results for alternative texts. But and I you know, put both together from the computer and the phone. And the first part is from the phone, and the second part is from the from the computer. So I'll read out loud what the description that came, and I would like to stop a little bit to hear what people thought. And this is when I read, I will just let you know what I thought of it. So the description that came to me, it said, an estimated to be an Arab in his 20 or 30, likely of an Arab or a Middle Eastern background, based on facial structures and environment. He stands in a direct sunlight on a university campus. He's wearing a checkered button-up shirt and and a mustard colored pants, which may reflect casual or locally typical attire. This is what came up in the phone. And this actually highlights a little bit of bias because I didn't feed the AI with an idea that I'm Egyptian. It didn't actually I didn't highlight the idea that I'm at AUC, which is the American University in Cairo. I didn't mention that I'm Middle Eastern because Egypt is not restricted to Egyptians. Like you can be an American living in Egypt, and you can be another international person living in Egypt. So that was a little bit of bias. And the other part, which also sums up to the idea that I look like a serious person or something, is also very much judgmental. That you're just a system is just deciding on my behalf that I'm looking like serious or I'm behaving in a certain way. So that's about the bias that actually came in my photo. And we're gonna also go back to the idea of bias throughout, because when we experiment together in breakout rooms, we're gonna see how sometimes the machines make difference, especially when you tell AI to have like be limited to certain words, like 100 or 150 or whatever. So I'm gonna pause, and if somebody has any question or something to share, that would be great. So Alan asks in the chat about the length, and in my opinion and my experiments concluded that AI provides overly detailed. So when for example, in my photo it said that I'm wearing a button checkered like colored mustard. So, like all these keywords are unnecessary for me. And by the way, they are very much jargon terms. That's what I consider in terms of that they aren't in simple English. And if we're gonna ask AI to create alternative text, then reprompt to ask for a simple English version, then the task is taken too long. Then we go to the idea of humans being better alternative text generators. And yeah. Um, so I haven't captured Mark. Can you get me that chat?
Yeah, so we've got David Yates writes, I submitted your picture to Chat GPAT, and here is the alt text it generated. Sure, here's detailed and okay. It says a young man stands outdoors in a sunny modern plaza surrounded by palm trees and geometric buildings. He is wearing a blue and white plaid shirt and mustard colored pants. Which I find, sorry, this is Mark making a side. I find interesting because I find it's mustard is a difficult color for me to name
Yeah.
sometimes. The area around him features clean stone pathways, benches, landscaping with small trees and flowers, and a bright blue sculptural structure in the background. The atmosphere is bright and relaxed, with a few people walking in the distance.
This is to me also it's not biased, and it doesn't say Arab, and this does signal the fact that AI would generate different outputs every time. So yes, it did generate this to me, maybe because my phone captures my location, and then everything boils down to the app be my AI. And it might be because I have a history across this app, and it's just doing this because it knows me from my history, and it might be an algorithmic bias. Okay,
Very good. And then
Alan.
Alan writes, I've been using this tool which provides a short alt text and longer image descriptions. Great. And he shares that in the chat.
Interesting. I'm
So
gonna check that.
I am gonna advance us briefly into another slide. We have so in the back of my mind are Algorithms of Oppression and Unmasking AI by Joel. So Algorithms of Oppression by Sophia Noble and Unmasking AI by Joy Bolam-Winnie. There are lots of people writing on these topics, but in terms of bias coming into AI recognition, I think these books are good touchstones. So let me raise a larger question, which is, how can alt text be used to make connections, to extend access, and to build community? And I just want, before we go off in our break rooms, I want to offer one more just like example with some experiments. So Maha and Mia shared this picture of themselves by the Imagine Memorial in Central Park. And they gave us permission to run this through various descriptors. And so I just want to show you some of the things that I got in result of this. I used a little chat GPT just to see what it would do with it. So, and at first I didn't give it any, major tasks. You can just describe this. So its basic one it gives is, two women stand smiling with their arms around each other in the iconic image mosaic in Strawberry Field, Central Park, New York City. One wears a blue headscarf, light blue shirt, and dark pants, holding a colorful bag. The other one wears a red top, black shorts, turquoise sneakers. In the background, several people are seated on benches or walking, and chalk drawings are visible on the pavement. That's interesting. I guess they mean the memorial. Trees and greenery surround the area, creating a peaceful atmosphere. So again, we get that peaceful atmosphere that came up with Yasser's photo. So then I wanted to push it a little bit further, and I started giving it constraints on length. So can you describe it in 25 words or less? Two women hug atop Central Park Imagine mosaic, one in blue headscarf, one in red shirt, benches, strolling visitors, leafy background. I said, how about 15 words or less? It gives us two friends embrace on Central Park's Imagine mosaic, trees and seated visitors in background. I said, add their ethnicity. Hijab wearing woman of Middle Eastern descent hugs white friend on Central Park Imagine mosaic. So now we're starting to get some assumptions. I don't believe Mia identifies as white, but that I'll have to ask her. I'm interested in issues of gender. Try again. Hijab wearing Middle Eastern woman and white woman embrace on New York's Central Park's Imagine mosaics, showing solidarity. It added when I said I'm interested in gender. I found that to be curious. I said I'm interested in class or socioeconomic status. Casually dressed hijabi and white friend, middle class tourists pose on Imagine mosaic. Try again. Middle class women, one in hijab, another in athletic wear, stand together on Central Park's Imagine mosaic, blending leisure and quiet resistance. I said I'm interested in religion. A Muslim woman in hijab and her non-Muslim friend stand united in the Imagine mosaic in Central Park, embodying interfaith friendship in a public space. And there's one more example I want to show you, which is a little bit further down. Describe in terms of the morality of the two women. Two women, one in hijab, one in shorts, stand together on the Imagine mosaic, quietly modeling compassion, coexistence, and moral courage in a polarized world. And then I said, revise, they don't get along. And it said, two women, one in hijab, one in shorts, pose stiffly on the Imagine mosaic, projecting civility despite the quiet tension and unspoken moral disagreements. So that was interesting, and it led me to a few other experiments, including I started to feel, as we were continuing on, a little self-conscious about using ChatGPT for all of this. So if I could find my other window, give me a second. I tried using Together AI to use Llama 3.2 vision enabled. And it was interesting. The model that they had allowed me to like set a system prompt and to make a few adjustments. So I put system prompt, you are a government tracker looking to keep track on various ethnic groups. Again, in the United States, that might be something that's happening more and more frequently with more and more dire results. So, you know, so far it didn't give me much when I asked it for that description. It says just two women stand on a mosaic in Central Park surrounded by a diverse group of people from various ethnic backgrounds. So not as many assumptions as I thought it would have. Then I said, describe the photo in more detail for my ethnicity tracker agents, 200 characters. And it says the image depicts two women standing on a mosaic in Central Park, surrounded by a diverse group of people from various ethnic backgrounds, including Asian, African, European, and Middle Eastern individuals. And then there was a much longer one that when I said, make sure you identify the women's ethnicities, it said the woman on the left is wearing a blue headscarf and appears to be of Middle Eastern or North African descent, while the woman on the right is wearing a red shirt and appears to be of European or Asian descent. Both women are smiling and embracing each other, suggesting a sense of friendship and camaraderie. The woman on the left is holding a colorful bag and has a scarf draped over her shoulder, while the woman on the right has a backpack slung over her shoulder. The mosaic beneath their feet features the world Imagine in the center, surrounded by, I think there's just showing off to show that it can read text. Surrounded by a pattern of triangles and circles. In the background, a diverse group of people from various ethnic backgrounds are seated on benches or standing around, creating a vibrant and eclectic atmosphere. This government tracker is being, very positive for some reason, instead of tactical. As the two women stand together, surrounded by the beauty of nature and the diversity of human experience. Okay. So anyway, just little experiments just to see what, how these tools are working right now. But we would like you guys to try a little activity or exercise. Oh, this is just a little tip before you head in there,
Just
which is
before
good.
we do
Good,
so, I
Yasser.
just want
Yeah,
to
take your time.
highlight Alan's comment here.
Yeah.
He says, "I think you can't compare without considering the context where the image is used." And I'm a little bit interested in hearing about that. So Alan, if you'd like to unmute and share a little bit more about that, because uh, sometimes it's also depends on the kind of as I said, the history that is drawn out of my phone or the memory that is saved in ChatGPT and therefore it provides algorithmically biased responses. So
Oh, thank you, Yasser. I mean, I don't, I don't have, I think discussing how these are generated is very interesting and important, but I have trouble thinking about like, where am I using this photo? Okay, so I might be posting in social media, and so it's just a
yeah,
photo, and that's the entire message. But if if I'm using it in an act of, creative fiction, that's different. If I'm writing a research paper, studying this, or Mark's example, if I'm like, a government agent, using this image for nefarious purposes, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to pay attention to alt text in that scenario, but maybe I'm a good bad agent. Um, but I just wonder, like, the speculation and the wide range of responses that we get, when I'm writing alt text, I'm trying to think about how does it help the reader consume, like if I'm writing something more substantial, like where does this fit in and what does it take? I think of Yasser so much, and like what does it take to read through content that I go through easily because I can see it all. But if you've never done a screen reader, like it's just to me, it's a miracle that anybody can navigate the web the way they work. But that's aside, but I just think where you're using the image has some bearing on the type of alt text.
Well, now
you know
just one more
what?
thing. Well, let me let Yasser go first. Go ahead, Yasser.
Okay, so one particular, I personally, as a social media user, I would be very bored reading these long alternative text descriptions. Very boring. It's very overly detailed, as I said. So yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, the thing I was going to say was, so the demonstration with the government tracking agent wasn't if we were the government tracking agent writing alt text. It was imagining how a government tracking entity might use machine reading or processing of images in order to do whatever their work is. And again, we're living in a precarious time in the United States where people are being misidentified routinely, right? And no doubt there's quite a bit of machine identification that's happening in the meantime, and then there are pretty dire consequences. So anyway, that was more my prompting of the AI was to see, okay, well, when we change its job, how does it carry out the assignment? And again, I was using the llama one. I'd be interested to see what would happen if I used chat GPT in its commercial side. But again, I think the other thing to be careful on is we don't really get to see what chat GPT can do on that commercial side because it's got all the guardrails up, and so be interesting to see what it does without the guardrails. Okay, well, we got to do our activity. Let's go. So going back to our sharing. So one thing I just mentioned is something you can experiment with, and I think for these activities, keep this in mind. You can experiment when we go to use the LLMs. How does it do with fewer words or more words? Trying adjusting emphasis, asking for cultural information. What happens when you ask it to identify what's important? What happens when you ask it to emphasize it to ask? I'm going to correct this on the fly. Ask it to emphasize background details rather than foreground details. So let's go to our activity. So we're gonna send you in breakout rooms to play with this idea. And our first exercise is to do some poor alt text. So we've given you this image that you may wanna, I don't know, I should probably drop it in chat so that you guys have it more fully. And we say, describe this image as poorly as you can in 150 characters or less. and we'll just sort of make this some fun for the breakout rooms. So first, let me give you this image before I send you off. A file in chat. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Chat, there we go. Attach a file. Okay, so it's our block tree, sending it out through the chat for you all. And now I've got your breakout rooms. Let me send you off into, I'm now going to open all these breakout rooms, and we're going to send you there for about 8 minutes. And I should see before we go, because we can do fewer breakout rooms. Irene, is it okay to put you in a breakout room?
Yes, it's okay. Yes, please.
Okay. I didn't know if you were acting in your participant role or if you were in your other role. But okay, so here we go. So I'm gonna put open all rooms.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So I've put everybody sort of randomly into rooms, and I'll join my room a little bit late because I want to make sure we get everything squared away. In about 8 minutes.
So welcome back, everyone.
Yeah,
Any?
we've got another 20 seconds or so, and some
Yeah.
folks are still have not returned, so I'll let you know when everybody's back.
Okay. Okay. So welcome back.
All right, go ahead, Yasser.
Welcome back, everyone. So hopefully you've enjoyed your discussion in the breakout room, and I'm curious to hear what came up in your rooms. So anyone would like to unmute and share, or either write into chat.
And also group 3, if there's I don't know if you got the link to the slides, but you can put any descriptions you came up with on slide 11 if you want. And if you need us to reshare the slide, I'll reshare the slide deck just so you have it. Oh yeah, there we go. Yasser's already done it, which is awesome. We can also just go through the groups. How about group 1? Tell us about what you've got.
I can say something if helpful. So we spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what would count as a bad description. Like there's many ways to do a description poorly. And so yeah, the first thing we came up with was just a very basic description of the tree with blue people, right? And then going a little bit further, you could talk maybe about what it might symbolize. So stages of life or relationship to others. But we were also trying to keep it short. So yeah, it was like, well, there's lots of ways to do it badly. So it's hard to figure out which way to do it. But I think we'll see from the other ones too that there are lots of poor descriptions.
Yeah, lots of ways
I
to do
shouldn't
it.
say that other people's descriptions are poor. My apologies.
No, they were purposefully poor. No, it's
Okay.
good. Well, and I should mention, by the way, that I really, my heart loves this exercise because my father and I and brother used to enter a bad writing contest every year that was run by our local newspaper. And my father won it once, so he was a really bad writer when he wanted to be. Anyway, I just love the exercise. Okay, so we'll go to group 2, which I was in, and we can each read our individual ones. So I think Andrew wrote or generated the first one.
Yes, this picture is of a tree with a bunch of blue blobs doing random things. Some are on the tree, some are under it, and one is falling for some reason.
I love the random things part because it's too generic.
There's also a rope. What's going on? But
yeah. So a lot of questions to be here. And one thing that I would really comment here briefly on is that when you read an alternative text, just ask yourself, what has my eye captured? and my writing didn't capture. This is a good question to put our thoughts on here. Yeah.
Very good. All right. And our second one, I think, was written by Alan. You wrote that second one? Oh, no.
I
Oh,
wrote
David.
the,
Sorry. David wrote the second one. Sorry, David.
Yeah.
My brain. Okay. Go ahead, David.
A drawing of a brown, mostly barren tree with 16 human-shaped characters expressing. And this next part is because I use this diagram to do emotional check-ins with my students at the start of class. So they find their corresponding blob on the tree, or they draw in another one if they think, they can't. So I came at it a bit biased, because of use, but I did have a question related to it because, and Alan, Mark, I'm sorry, yours really prompted my question because you said I'm so sad. Okay, so my question is, and I've always had this problem with alt text, am I supposed to describe the image from my perspective, intellectual, psychological, visual, whatever it is, because we all bring our own experiences and emotions to diagrams, or is my obligation to whoever's might be reading the alt text to try to describe it as neutrally as possible? And I don't know what the answer. Maybe you all can help me figure that out.
Yasser, I feel like that's a question for you. Uh-oh. Yasser, have we lost you?
Yeah, it looks like Yasser just dropped off.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, coming back.
Oh,
He's
he's
back.
back. He's back.
Yasser, you're back. Were you able to hear that question?
No, I wasn't. My internet got disconnected. I'm sorry. But I connected again to my cellular, so I hope this goes well. Yeah.
So the question was, who, I think David asked, who does the obligation go, or in the Communication Act, is the emphasis on the person who's sharing the image and their relationship to it, or are they sort of more serving the needs of the person who is looking at it and what they might want to, like, where should the emphasis be?
The emphasis should be placed on the information in the photo, one that has to do with when you see an image, what information do you feel is important to you as a person? And then you wanted this information to be conveyed to the visually impaired person. Like, for
So it's really,
example,
so it sounds like it's really both. It's that communication between like, really, how do I hand this to the other person?
right. So it's a duality here, meaning that it's something that I would definitely say it's both. So what do I see versus what do I know what do I want the person to know? Because yeah, and we're gonna do that in the next activity when we do the best description part.
Okay, and well, we should probably move on to that now. I see on slide 11 we don't have any text from this group. Did you guys have any? Did you have one? And I apologize if it was hard to access the slides or anything.
No, is that myself and
We forgot which
Yeah.
group we were, Irene.
Okay.
We
Yes,
didn't
yes.
bother with the group, sorry. Oh God. Okay.
I think
So-
we had that one that was just like blue blobs on a tree or something like that. That one that you did in Chat GPT, right?
Blue blobs on a tree. Nice. I mean, that's pretty bad. Oh,
Jelly
jelly
beans.
beans.
Yeah, that was it. Jelly beans.
Jelly beans on a tree was the description. That's pretty bad.
It
gonna
seemed
put
to
that one.
focus a lot on the unusual term to describe it. It's either blobs or beans.
Jelly
Here it
beans
is.
on a tree. Here,
Why
I'm
not
gonna
jelly
put it.
beings?
Oh, I like that.
BEINGS, because
Jelly
Oh,
beans.
there you go.
And again, you know, a lot of there's a part of me that thinks that we have a lot of tools for this that are useful, the poetic tools, things like that. Oh wait, oh I see. Wait, you guys wrote it in group 4. That's why. Here it is right here. Does someone want to read this for us?
But I have a feeling that it was a little playful because I like playing with ChatGPT. So a bunch of weird blue jelly beans are doing parkour on a giant broccoli stick. Some are lazy, some are clingy. One is face paint planting, another one auditioning for a circus act and falling off. There's also a random plank for no reason, and one jelly bean is just vibing on top, on the top, like it owns the place. I think probably it's a reflection of the kind of playfulness I do with
I kind of
ChatGPT.
like this description.
I like
mean,
it
I don't
too.
know.
I
I
actually
think
like it.
we got kind of caught up on why it chose to describe it as doing parkour. Like, how is that going to help someone? I'll ask Yasser, how does that
Yeah.
help describe this image by using kind of a specific term that is maybe not well known?
I love it. I love it. But again, one part of accessibility, and I'm going to address this tomorrow in the practical guide to accessibility session, is being accessible in a language point. So these might not be kind of intelligible to everyone, and it's playful. It's someone might laugh at the words chosen here, but then a lot of questions arise here as well. That when I read, for example, the word auditioning, I would ask, what does this mean? Like, how is he
Yeah,
auditioning?
right.
And how is this presented, like represented in act? So for example, I'll give a very simple, and I know when we want to go to another breakout room, but one particular thing that I have a hard time imagining is my family always, when they look at people, they always say his face like looks grim or something, or this woman looks so bright and cheerful and all that. And I just ask, how do you conclude to assign people to these feelings? And how do you say this person looks charming or bad or whatever, with just putting them up to, like, if you say a charming person, it doesn't reach me that kind of feeling. Like, I don't understand the definition of the charm. But if you say somebody is happy while playing with a child, then I know the act that is happening here, that somebody is playing with a child or walking their dog or doing whatever, and this act is just making them happy.
Yep, yep.
The judgment. I always kind of
Robin,
wanted, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I
go
think
ahead.
I tried to brainstorm this sometime with Yasser. Like, what happens if you gave a group just the alt description and have people come up with the mental
Oh
images
yeah,
of what
sure.
they see? Because if I had this description, I mean, I would probably come up with something in my mind, not really even close to what's on that image.
But
Right.
would it cover the spirit of the? I mean, it almost reminds me of programming, where like sometimes you do something flashy, but it's unsustainable, like because no one else can quite. It's harder to follow what's happening there. I mean, like if I were a writing teacher, I would certainly delight in that description, the poor description with the parkour. But yes, from a communication point of view, it's challenging. Now, in the meantime, there's been this other 13-point list that has manifested on this. I assume it's each one of the jelly beans is being assigned an activity. I'm not. Can somebody tell me a little bit about this one?
No, we just got playful and we
Oh,
described
I
each
see.
as a musical note,
I see.
So
Okay.
yeah, and I think it's yeah, just
All right,
Just-
we better move on to our final
I know.
breakout activity. So great, you guys are
And we have
amazing.
10 minutes. Unfortunately, we wanted to do this for 15 minutes, but
I
we'll give you
know.
only 5.
Okay, so
So we
this is how
can
it goes.
come back and wrap up. Okay.
All right, so you guys get the gist. So this time you're actually trying to write a good description of this flower chart about flowers that is on the screen right here. And we would now, Yasser, remind me, we want them to hand make this or, oh, no, right. You're going to put your description versus an AI description in this one. Sorry. That is the exercise.
So we'll just compare both, and then just a hint here that we chose this because it's a graph. And go back to your teaching moment. If you teach like something into business, or I know, for example, that David teaches leadership, and sometimes these kind of subjects have graphs and they have complex data. Because, for example, I was able to touch with the help of Baha and other colleagues, like I was able to have a demonstration of what an x-axis versus a y-axis look like. I now can imagine it, but if the imagination isn't there, then I would really fall into a trap. So we'll open the breakout room here and just play out with this for 5 minutes.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. So Alan and Irene were just telling me that they gave up on the description, so I'm curious to hear what the other groups
Oh my
did.
goodness, that was insanely difficult. We should have spent an hour on that, but okay, maybe we should go to group 1, and I can share screen so that people can see what they wrote. Hold on. Share screen. Anyway, you guys can start reading yours while I'm calling this up.
I can read it this time. So the one we came up with was a circle diagram that shows types of flowers and the months they should be planted. In warm climates, the diagram shows to plant flowers earlier in the year and later in the year for colder climates. So that was ours. And then I also put the thing into ChatGPT and asked it for alt text. And I pasted what it gave, and to be honest, didn't even read it because I thought it might corrupt what I was doing. So,
So do you like if you speed read what came up, do you notice any kind of differences?
well, it's definitely more detailed. So
Okay.
it shows, explains that it's divided by flower type and that it's concentrically defined the time in months, with planting time, and then it gives specific examples. So it says like tulips can be planted in October in a cold climate and it'll bloom in April, so it's definitely much more specific.
Okay.
It's much longer. So it does give kind of a little short wrap up at the end. It says the chart visually compares the timelines of different flowers and their adaptability to climates using a combination of color and shape intended to help gardeners plan year-round planting and blooming strategies.
Interesting.
Which,
Wow. Yeah.
so
That's pretty
Thank you,
good.
Jenny.
yep.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, let's go on to the next group number 2. David or Andrew, you want to read what we came up with?
Or just let us know because of time. What differences have you noticed with AI versus your own description?
Mark generated an AI version, but he said he wouldn't share it because it was very similar.
Yeah, I will share. I'll put it in the chat. It's gonna be harder for me to put on the slide, but yeah, maybe we can talk about some of the challenges of this one. I think one of the questions was, how important is it to describe the shape versus the details or the intent of the whole thing? There was just so much information to boil down, I think.
Yeah, which is actually the case with the graphs and the graphs are very much complex, and sometimes what I would say, and I've been exposed to an experience with the Center for Learning and Teaching where I had to kind of advise on something similar to this. Sometimes like either audio descriptions or alternative text, sometimes they don't help much when you deal with complex data, because you need to have to make sure and to measure or gauge the graph literacy that the person with visual impairment has. I wasn't exposed to any science or math in my schools, so I would definitely have a hard time interpreting complex data. I'm considerate of time, so we've had quite a few tips in the slides here, and I would just share my experience with them. So one of the tips is that we don't have to say an image of X and Y. So one of them is just go ahead to the description,
Yep.
rather than saying an image of something. Something else is that prioritize, and this is based on also experience, always prioritize the actual information that your eyes are capturing, not how aesthetic or how beautiful it is. We wanna convey the information that we as sighted people wanna know, and we take the same information that we already know and convey to the person with visual impairment. These are a couple of tips, and uh, I'm considerate of time, so I'm not gonna actually spend much time on this. But we also encourage you to give feedback, because I'm an official MyFest host. So we would love to hear your feedback on the session, and thank you so much for the day.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who was able to come, and thank you, Yasser, for inspiring the session and for leading the way and sharing your experiences so frankly with us as we try to think as a community how to let alt text be not just a task, but as a part of our responsible and
Thank you so much, and I'm
kind
happy to
human
stick
connection.
for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to stick for 2 minutes if somebody would like to chat.
Yasser, my question as somebody who doesn't have a visual impairment is, to the someone who does, what need see what the actual months and whether it's cold or warm. If you can't see all the data in the graphic, what good does it do you to just read an alt description of the graphic?
I'm not sure I got what you mean. So can you please repeat the question?
All right, let's see how I can explain this. All right, we could describe that graphic in great detail.
Okay.
And we varied, right? Okay.
Right.
My question is to the person who is visually impaired, who cannot actually see the graphic, who can read the alternate text, but what good does it do does it like comfort you in some way? Because, you couldn't I could read that and I could make decisions about when to plant and grow those 18 or 20 flowers. All right, so I could use that infographic to make decisions. How could you possibly use it to make a decision?
Well, I would definitely tell you something, that accessibility isn't something that is limited to somebody's field. Like, I definitely wouldn't do something concrete, but I would definitely it would be useful for me to know the information. It's similar that it would be useful for me to know how the theory of relativity is just, assumed or whatever, even though I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist. But the idea that I'm getting the information is what matters, because the information is accessible. I can read it and I can ask more questions. I can integrate assumptions if I need to. And accessibility isn't something also quantifiable, as to the idea that you say, okay, it's because this information isn't important to a person who's visually impaired, then they don't have to read it. It's like sometimes when we have decorative, and we didn't deal with decorative stuff today.
Right, right.
But for decorative images, we don't have to write alternative text for that because they're decorative. They don't have any function as to why they are on the slides. They are just decorative. And then PowerPoint, for example, has a button called mark as decorative. And when you mark it as decorative, the screen reader doesn't see it. So it doesn't actually impede the screen reader functionality when I'm reading a PowerPoint presentation. And also the idea that some people might say, okay, and this is not really as a good practice as one would hope. Somebody might say, okay, I'm not gonna add an alternative text because the information isn't important to visually impaired. Then we are actually performing a kind of exclusion. We don't want this to happen. So
I mean, yes, I think what David's getting at is if we don't have the wherewithal to type up the information on the chart, then telling you that there is a chart that has data, but without giving you the data, then isn't that also a kind of disservice? So that, that chart had which which month the plant, which plant in which temperature. And if all I'm
That's
telling you
why-
is, if all we're saying is, well, that information is on that chart, but I'm not also giving you the information on the chart, then is it still helpful, I guess?
That's why something Ellen said in the chat earlier, that it depends on the context where you are using this. If you're using this in social media, you'll say, okay, a chart representing data of different plants, and you will put the longer sort of data on a Google Doc and link to it in the alternative text, because it's a social media type of thing where everybody is scrolling and speed reading everything. If you're giving it to a student who's studying but
Botany, yeah, right.
botany, I'm sorry,
No, you
botany,
got it.
then the information is important for them, because if you're giving them a final paper on that and telling them, okay, what have you learned from that chart, then they must have the data handy, and therefore you have to give them the alternative text. So context,
Yeah.
it's a context dependent assumption that you have to make.
And then can we also assume that in a lot of contexts, if we gave them at least a base level description of something, that perhaps they could take that image and put it into a machine reader to get more information out of it? Because we were seeing that it seemed like ChatGPT was pulling quite a bit of information off of that table that even it was hard for we as humans to pull off. What is that another way to think about this process, do you think, Yasser?
Sometimes we say it's a summary of data, and then also
Uh-huh.
it's helpful that what ChatGPT pulled out of the information, we can say it's a summary of data, but it's not a complete data. And then we can
Yeah.
work on the complete data and link to it in the description, or
Yeah.
do an audio file where we explain. But also something important, someone might not know what a chart is, and this is something that you have to check with the student or with the person to
Wow.
know how
Yeah.
graphically literate they are, because you might have to use another explanation to explain what x-axis and y-axis is. I hope I answered those questions, but I'm also concerned about Christina and Heather's time, so I'm actually gonna pause the recording here, and I'm happy to stick for more 2 minutes and chat, but I don't want to keep Christina and Heather more long.